Good to see everybody. Hopefully everybody had a better day than I did in the shop here. Kind of had a real ball buster of a day. But I'm going to go ahead and put the Race Tech fork springs in the KLR. These are the ones that if you search them on Rocky Mountain ATVMC.com, these are the ones that come up for it. Are they correct or not? I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and put them in. That's what they sent me. Now, of course, I'll show you. What you get is, you get the spring. This is the spring they give you. This is quite a bit shorter. Okay, stock right here, stock, Race Tech beside it. It's about 2 7/8 of an inch shorter. So, they give you, of course, 2 springs. They give you 4 of these washers right here. And they give you, I already have this PVC pipe cut. It is actually probably about as long as this spring. And I cut 2 hunks off that I'm going to use and start with about 10 millimeters of preload, give or take. Now I already put everything in the right side. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of do the left side here. And listen, I am not an expert. This is not a how-to video. This is just like, hey, this is what KC did to his bike video. I'm showing you. Because they give you instructions here, but they're very vague, and they say you can use the QR code right here and pull it up for your bike, but I even pulled the QR code up for Race Tech, put the info in for the 2022 KLR, and it basically just gives you these same vague instructions right here, like this. So I'm just kind of doing it the way I think it should be done. So let's go ahead and do it, check it out. I'll show you what I did here so far to get started. The first thing I did was I loosened my bar clamps and moved the bars back a little bit, then just tightened one of the bolts back up to hold them there. If you do it this way, just take note that if you're up here wrenching around and moving your bars, put something to protect your tank, because if you have your bars laying way back and you're here wrenching on these bolts or this top cap, you could push your bars or any of your accessories on your bars into your tank and scratch it or put a dent in it. So what I've done, I've loosened the 2 triple clamp bolts here at the top of the fork tube, and I also, these are 12 millimeter. I also broke loose the top cap. It is 22 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this out, and then I will remove the spring and the spacer that is in here from the factory. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right. Like I said, 22 millimeter, and this is under a little bit of pressure, spring pressure. When you take it off, it's going to pop up. I'm using a big 22 millimeter socket. And that's what I'm saying. When I'm putting pressure on this, my bars are kind of going against the tank there, so you want to be careful. Make sure too that these triple clamp bolts, I actually want to get my 12 millimeter. Make sure they are all the way loose so they're not putting pressure on the top of the tube there, because it'll make that a lot harder to get loose because it's putting pressure on the thread. Mirrors in the way. Okay. There. Top cap is out. Now, made a special little wire to fish out my spring, but guess what? I misplaced it. I gotta find it. Story of my life. My day on the KLR is continuing from my day on the GMC Denali. Okay. Where, oh where are you, Mr. Spring Hook? Might have to turn the video off here and locate my spring grabber. Ah! Okay. This is a piece of wire here. You could use a coat hanger. I bent a little L shape. I will put this down in. You can hook it inside the spring and lift everything up. All right, sorry about the delay, customer pickup. Anyhow, here's my little coat hanger type deal. This is for my finger to hold, and I just put a little bend on it to get down in, and you can put it down through the middle of the spring and it catches the edge and you pull it up. Okay, so first thing here, pulling out factory preload spacer. I will put this down on the paper here so you can see basically what comes out. Okay, now I'm going to fish down in here, get it hooked in. Now you're going to lose a couple drips of oil, so I may put a couple drips back in, but I'm not doing any oil changing or nothing like that. I'm just doing the springs, plain and simple. There's a washer on top right there. You take the spring out really slow, a lot of the oil is going to run off. I mean, I took the other side out, and I mean, I basically lost a couple drips of oil. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I really have no idea what I'm doing. Have I done this before on other bikes? Yes. Simple bikes, the old school ones, DR 650, older KLRs. But I am not an expert. I'm sure guys will be like, dude, you hacked that all up. That's not even close. See, I'm losing a couple drips there. Pull this out. Okay, now I'll show you here how it's supposed to look. Okay, right here's what I took out. Spring, there's a washer there between it, preload spacer, and of course your cap is on like that. Now they do tell you in the instructions, you see there was no washer on here from the factory. They do tell you in the instructions to put a washer. This is how I put it back. I'm going to show you how I put it back in, okay? Boom. Stock spring away. Race Tech spring with put the spring in, then I put the washer in. I put the factory spacer tube back in. Then I did a washer like that, spacer, and then they do tell you to give one of the washers that they gave you on top of that, and then you put your fork cap back on. Now, in the past, I've always used, they only give you one tube with Race Tech, and it's not long enough to cut in half and space this. So, I mean, I'm guessing you're supposed to use this factory spacer. Then I cut this to have about 10 millimeters preload. It's sticking up above the fork tube about 10 millimeters. I'll see if that's too harsh. If it is, then I'll cut it down. You saw when I pulled these out, the factory setup here is basically flush with the top of the fork tube with no pressure on it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this stuff in and get everything buttoned up here. Okay. Got my spring. Now I have the washer on here too. I'm just going to go ahead and let that washer on there. You can just drop this in. I just am kind of feeding it down in with this little hanger hickam-a-jiggy. At least I'm going to try. Goes way down in there. Gotta get my hook out. Okay. Now, that was the spring with the washer on top. So now I'm putting the factory spacer tube back in, like that. Then I'm putting a washer in on top. Like so. Then I have my cut preload spacer. I'm putting that in. See, what I may do is I may just go to the hardware store and get some Schedule 40 PVC, measure that factory tube plus this one and make one big long spacer. We'll see. That is there. Now, and they tell you they want a washer back on that. So you have to sit that on there, and this has a lot of pressure on it. So what I'm going to be doing here is, being I have 10 millimeters of preload, I have my extension that I used with my 22 millimeter, and I'm actually going to get, this bike is way up in the air, so going to get up on here. Now this will press down in probably about 5 or so millimeters in there to help line it up. Just do not cross thread it, which I'm saying a prayer even doing this, that I don't cross thread it. It's hard when you're pressing on that preload spacer to make sure you're getting it straight. That's the only thing that makes me very nervous. Get nervous. Nervous. Like I said, ball buster day in the shop, so doing something like this, I get nervous. Okay. And I do not have any torque specs on anything. The only thing I can say is do not over tighten these. They do not get very tight. People would think you got to crank them, but you'll screw up your fork tube. I'm just getting them a little bit snug. crank at your own risk. I mean, they took a little bit of a heave-ho to break them loose, but I'm not giving them a big heave-ho because if I ride this and it's too stiff, I'm going to go ahead and cut those preload tubes a little bit more. Alright, I took it out for a little initial test ride. It's definitely stiffer than stock. I only took it up a fire road with a couple little fire breaks that are 6 inches high that I kind of launched it off of. The stock suspension was fine for me. I really had no complaints other than if you would kind of take this thing off about a 12-inch high lip and land or something like that, it does, even with the rear shock and my 200 slightly over pound weight, it would kind of bottom out basically. So I'm just doing these upgrades basically for that. Now the next video I will be doing this Top Gun spring. I believe this is the 7.4 kilogram from Rocky Mountain. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the next video and hopefully that'll balance this thing out. This I just more or less want to have in case I load up the panniers for adventure riding and ride a little bit rough. Well, while it's loaded down, I maybe would prefer to have this, but we'll get it on and see what it does for my weight. So remember to like, subscribe, get on your Cowie, get outside. See you with this bad boy next time. Good day, everybody. Time for this little bad boy white right here. White like me. Check it out. All right. Top Gun 84.99, I believe. Rocky Mountain. This, I will put it in the video somewhere. I believe it is the 7.4 gram, and I will put the weight specs on it. Total weight specs for riding. So, I already have some bolts broken loose here. I'll get the camera and show you what we got going on to get this baby on. If we can. All right, so. Side panel off. Hex bolt, hex head, and also one here up underneath and one right here up underneath. That allows you to pull your side panel off. And what I did here, you have this little rubber cover thing over your fuse thing. I kind of pulled it off the little clippies here, pulled it out of the way. There's one bolt right here that holds your fuse holder. It's an 8mm. You take that out, it just gives you enough room to get back in here. You can see my shock bolt there. It's already knocked loose right there. It gives you enough room to get it out of the way to get your socket on it in there. And then if you come down here to the bottom, we have nuts. These are 22mm on this side, and the bolt head on the other side is 17. So what I did is I broke this bolt loose on the dog bone. I'm going to take this one out like this. Take this nut off. When you push that through, the dog bone will drop right out of the way with this one cracked loose. And I also already have the bolt broken loose on the bottom of the shock here. We'll go ahead and pop that out, and then you can see that hopefully we can get the shock out. Okay.